Video game graphics, heck yeah! Of course, gameplay is the most important thing, but we still like to highlight the games that we thought looked the best this year in 2019. Now, if you're new, the way we approach making this list is we're looking for raw graphical power. So think pretty textures, lighting, effects, more than art style. We're highlighting the big guns here, so let's get started off with number 10. Days Gone is first up, and it looks really damn good. It's an open world game that thankfully still manages to hold on to just really high quality just across the board. Pretty looking environmental effects, atmospheric effects, lighting, sunset, weather effects. This game looks particularly good at night in the rain, which is sometimes a little hard for games. Days Gone definitely knocks it out of the park in that regard. It has little things here and there when you're up close, but ultimately the detail is really impressive and on par with some other Sony exclusives. But the fact that it's in an open world setting makes it that much more impressive. And of course, we gotta mention the freaker hordes. The freakers or zombie type things in the game often roam around in giant crowds, and the game, of course, has hundreds of these enemies on screen at once, like one giant swarming blob, and it is incredibly impressive to see in motion. That is a kick-ass graphical showcase if I've ever seen one. But next, over at number 9, we have Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown. It was really nice to have a new, fresh Ace Combat game this year. After many years, it's awesome. If you don't realize why people talk about these games, it's more than just like a flight sim dogfighting game. It's got a bit more anime stuff to it, and thankfully, it also looks really damn good. It's actually pretty hard to make these types of games look interesting, but if you got a good graphics engine behind you, you have really awesome looking sky, obviously, but the ground can look pretty realistic and convincing, and also the game does a really good job with massive structures that you have to fly around, and especially the weather effects. That's like one of the biggest things this game brought in terms of like game-changing stuff for combat scenarios, but also graphically. Big horrific storms looked really, really impressive. And of course, it's really worth pointing out the level of detail on the planes themselves is amazing. Ace Combat 7 is definitely an underrated one this year, and you should check it out if you haven't already. Now next, over at number 8, we have Gears 5. Now with this one in particular, I want to point out, like, it's obvious for a lot of them, but here it's especially true. This game looks way, way better on PC. If you can get your hands on this on PC, that is definitely the way to experience it, because you get a lot of the really awesome graphical elements that Gears of War 4 brought to the table, but now you have them in more open-ended environments, a lot more daylight scenes, and that means you can really get to see the graphics really work. There's tons of desert sand, weather effects, lots of very impressive snow and ice. They really, really focused on that, you can tell. But also, and most importantly, since they're the main focus, the characters look damn good. From the shine on their armor to the details on their faces. This is another one that looks especially good at night, and Gears 5 does still, of course, give you a lot of interior environments and a lot of weird, gross, wet stuff and blood and goo, and it's definitely always good for that. But over to number 7, we have Resident Evil 2, which looks pretty damn fantastic. First of all, the Resident Evil engine that they used to originally build Resident Evil 7 and now Resident Evil 2 is just kick-ass and does a really good job at showcasing high-quality visuals. You can notice especially in the characters themselves, the main characters, Leon and Claire, their faces are downright incredible. Not only that, the game just does a really good job of like showcasing real grimy, nasty, gritty detail in a gross police station and laboratory. Actually, pretty similarly to how the original Resident Evil 2 did it. But here, of course, you have fully 3D environments, and that makes it all the more impressive compared to the old game's pre-rendered stuff. But I really want to especially highlight the points when you're out on the streets of Raccoon City, where the streets are long, the view distance is longer, it's dark, there's lots of enemies, there's great fire effects and weather effects. Man, this is where the game is firing on all cylinders, and it is damn good looking. Capcom honestly has been doing a great job with their games recently, and since we are talking about Capcom, let's move on over to number 6 and talk about Devil May Cry. Another really damn good looking game that also is another game that seems like it's kind of flying under the radar for Game of the Year considerations, but it's a really good game. But I digress. I'm talking about the graphics here, and where you can see it the most, again, is in the character models. these characters, specifically their faces, are probably the most realistic of what we've seen this year compared to like one or two other ones. Dante and Nero especially, just they look like real dudes. It's crazy. Also, this is a Devil May Cry game that gives you some of the more open and impressive looking environments from like a cityscape standpoint. I do wish the end of the game didn't boil down to just weird, gross, wet caves, but at the very least, those weird, gross, wet caves do look pretty good. But also in the combat, from the fluid motion of the characters to the way the frames of animation actually work, to the particle effects on screen when you're swinging around multiple weapons, switching between them. That's where you can see this game is incredibly impressive. Look up like a slow motion play of the game, or maybe like a GIF. Some people capture GIFs of certain combat moments. This game is great, and it also is a hell of a looker. But over to number 5, we have Dirt Rally 2.0. We gotta give a car game some love, and Dirt Rally 2 is probably the best looking racing game this year. And of course it's rally racing, so it's a really good way to showcase graphical capabilities because you have dirt, you have cars getting dusty, muddy. The track and the terrain actually deforms in real time depending on where you're driving, which is freaking crazy if you think about it, the fact that they're starting to think of these things. But honestly, there's not too much else to say about Dirt Rally 2.0. Ever since Gran Turismo 2, I always thought that rally races in particular were really good for showcasing graphics of a racing game, and Dirt Rally 2.0 just knocks it out of the park, dude. But down to number 4, let's talk about Metro Exodus. Whoo boy! The Metro series' first foray into more open style environments definitely succeeds in many ways. The game, right at the start, gives you the classic Metro feel, creepy dark hallways, great moody atmospheric lighting effects, then of course brings you outside to the snow-covered world of Russia, which is highly detailed and just insane. But then the game goes to the next level by giving you multiple open environments that are all completely varied and different. You see dusty, dried out desert areas, you see swamps, you see other winter landscapes that are sort of melting, you see foliage. They do a lot with this game, and it all looks consistently great from top to bottom. From the detail of the guns to the lighting effects in your general environment, and just the look of your equipment to your items that you're holding, everything about this game looks fantastic, and we absolutely highly recommend it also for playing. But down to number 3, let's talk about the 2019 Modern Warfare, specifically the campaign, because it looks really good. Infinity Ward used photogrammetry technology for this game, which is kind of like the act of scanning real-world objects and then placing them and modeling them in the game for a way more realistic look. They've scanned war-torn places, bombed-out places, and of course, people to really make everything look damn good. And there are parts of this game, specifically in the campaign, like when you're doing the sneaking missions, the Zero Dark 30 style missions, where the death animations are incredibly realistic, the lighting is incredibly dark and convincing and tense. Bullets fly through drywall and shatter doors. Muzzle flashes actually look realistic and light up the environment. There's a lot going on with this game, and I think, people are a little divided on the multiplayer, but that campaign is pretty damn good, and it looks even better. But down to number 2, we have Death Stranding, a game with massive, sprawling open environments that look incredibly realistic and convincing. All the while, you're walking around it all exploring as a highly realistic looking Norman Reedus. From all the packages that he's carrying, individually modeled and stuff like that, to his actual suit, to weather effects, to him getting snowy, dirty, wet, everything in between. The game just has an eye for detail that I really learned to appreciate and really loved. When you're in your private quarters too, the game really kind of boils down the detail to a good level, being able to examine all your equipment and see all the detail that went into it. I don't know, this one's a weird one to talk about because it is such a weird game, and honestly, it is deceptively simple in a lot of ways, but I think the way the environment looks, the way the characters look, and also the variety of it all, you see so many different types of characters, and you see so many different types of environments without spoiling anything. It does a really great job of looking damn good, especially when you got a good 4K HDR TV. I think it's going to be even better when it releases next year for PC, and folks are going to be able to tweak with it even more. I can't wait to see how that's going to look. But let's move down to number 1 and talk about Control. We love the way Control looks top to bottom. from an art design perspective, but also, like for this video, a raw graphical perspective. The oldest house looks damn incredible. Highly detailed, absolutely realistic office spaces, carpets, chairs that all suddenly kind of give way to this fantastical, almost sci-fi style architecture, and then just a lot of weird otherworldly stuff kind of all melds together to be a perfect package of a good-ass graphical showcase. Not to mention some of the in-game damage that goes on. As Jesse Faden, you fly around, you force push, you do all these crazy telekinetic powers, and it really disrupts and destroys the environment, like with your bullets, with your throwing things, everything, like chunks of the walls fly off, tiles shatter, papers fly everywhere. The amount of effects that are going on is insane, and it makes every shootout feel really badass, and afterwards, it always looks like the end of the lobby in the shootout scene from the original Matrix. Not only that, characters look highly realistic, almost like eerily realistic, especially Jesse, which is worth pointing out, as well as the fact that the game does support RTX and has ray tracing, and if you can get that shit running, man, this is a really good looking game, to the point where we do think it's the best looking one of the year. But of course, these are our personal choices here at the gameranx office. We're looking forward to hearing yours. But before we do go, we have a couple bonus games as well. Of course, Red Dead Redemption 2 released on PC this year. We gotta mention that, even though technically it's a game from last year. Also, scouring the internet and stuff, we've seen a lot of people giving props to Far Cry New Dawn for looking pretty damn good as well. And of course, The Division 2, another beautifully rendered realistic world from Massive. I think that's probably the best thing they do, is the game worlds. And last but not least, can we say Anthem? I mean, Anthem actually, it looks pretty good. Those robots are really cool looking. Anyway, like I said, we want to hear from you guys down in the comments. Some of the best graphics you saw this year, let us know. But if you enjoyed this video and maybe had a good time, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We'd really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But either way, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.